Who dies in Stranger Things 5 and who actually makes it out of Hawkins alive? Stranger Things. Season 5 is finally here, and the Duffers have already warned us this final chapter is brutal, with the most violent death the show has ever done. So today, we're going all in. We're breaking down the past deaths, the biggest fan theories, and the most realistic predictions about who's going to die in Season 5, who's safe, and the one final twist that could completely emotionally destroy us. Before we dive into the upside down one last time, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our Stranger Things finale breakdowns. Because if the Duffers are right, we are not making it out of this season emotionally okay. All right, let's talk death. First, let's remember just how deadly Stranger Things has actually been so far. For 4 seasons, the show has given us some truly painful losses, but they've been very selective. Barb in Season 1, Bob Newby in Season 2, Billy in Season 3, Alexei and then Eddie Munson in Season 4, plus newer characters like Chrissy and Fred. The pattern is very clear. Supporting characters and lovable newcomers die, while the core kids and main adults get dragged to the brink and then saved at the last second. And that's not by accident. Matt Duffer literally said, "It's important that every death resonates in a big way, and that they're very careful about who they kill because it creates massive season-long ripple effects." They've also pushed back on the whole just kill everyone for shock value thing. One of his most famous lines is, "We aren't Game of Thrones. This is Hawkins. It's not Westeros." So no, this is not a show that's going to wipe out half the cast just because it's the final season. But they have promised higher stakes, a more violent season, and a finale that will make you cry in front of strangers if you watch it in theaters. So with all that in mind, let's break down the characters from most safe to, oh God, start the funeral playlist. Let's start with the safest people in Hawkins. You absolutely cannot spell America without Erica, and pretty much everyone agrees Erica Sinclair is untouchable. She's younger, she's comic relief, and she's become the future of the party, a hardcore Dungeons & Dragons nerd in her own right. Killing one of the youngest kids would feel needlessly cruel and out of step with how the Duffers have handled deaths so far. A lot of fans actually think she'll be the one carrying the torch at the end, maybe running the next generation of Hellfire Club. If anyone survives, it's Erica. Dustin Henderson is also about as safe as it gets. The show already made him watch his hero Eddie die in front of him. Having Dustin die on top of that would just feel like cruelty for cruelty's sake. Multiple writers and critics have pointed out that Dustin is the emotional puppy of the group. Keeping him alive to carry the trauma of these events into adulthood actually hits harder than killing him. Holly Wheeler is a bit more complicated. She's been aged up, recast, and given a bigger role in Season 5, which usually means danger. But bringing in Nancy and Mike's little sister just to kill her off would be insanely dark. Most predictions say she'll be thrown right into the action, maybe even echoing Will's Season 1 storyline, but she ultimately survives thanks to her family. Then you've got characters who are in danger, but still probably walking out of Season 5 alive. Max Mayfield is at the top of that list. On paper, things look bad. She technically already died in Season 4, her bones snapped, her heart stopped, 11 couldn't find her in the void, and she ended up in a coma. In the Season 5 trailers, we mostly see her unconscious, and she was mysteriously left off some of the early promo posters, which led to some pretty intense fan theories. But if they wanted Max dead, they would have just left her dead last season. Killing her now after all of that would feel repetitive instead of tragic. Sadie Sink is confirmed to be back, and reports have said Max is in the hospital for a big chunk of the season, which sets up a huge she wakes up moment. There's still so much story left with her trauma, her guilt over Billy, and her relationship with Lucas. So yes, she's in danger, but most people predict she survives. Speaking of Lucas, there's been a long-running theory that he might sacrifice himself for Max, especially with the running up that hill lyrics about swapping places. And Caleb McLaughlin did fuel the panic a bit by joking in an interview that his finale experience was different. But narratively, it makes more sense for Lucas to be the one who stands by Max, not the one who dies instead of her. He's already been through so much emotionally. Completely destroying him doesn't add much. Most prediction lists put Lucas as at risk, but likely safe. Robin Buckley is an interesting one. She's a newer addition compared to the original kids, and Stranger Things does have a history of killing off charismatic teen side characters. But Robin has now survived 2 seasons and become a fan favorite. There's also the very uncomfortable optics of killing off your one openly queer main character after giving her a love interest. A lot of people think that if there's a big, tragic, sacrificial moment, Robin and Steve would do it together. But the safer bet is that she lives, probably traumatized, probably still anxious, but alive. Nancy Wheeler is also in that middle zone. She's evolved from quiet, rule-following honor student to shotgun-wielding monster hunter. She constantly throws herself into danger, and she's stuck in a love triangle between Steve and Jonathan. One way to solve that triangle would be to kill Nancy instead of making her choose. However, the Season 5 trailer has that shot of Nancy sobbing and scrubbing blood off her hands, which heavily implies she's grieving someone else, not dying herself. Most serious predictions say Nancy survives but loses somebody close. Mike Wheeler, just by sheer symbolism, is probably safe. The show literally called him the heart of the party last season. Matt Duffer even joked in an interview that killing Mike would just be depressing in the wrong way. Again, this is Hawkins, it's not Westeros. Mike hasn't had as much direct action as some of the others, but emotionally he's central, especially to Will and Eleven. It's very unlikely they end this story with the heart ripped out. Now we get into the truly dangerous territory, the characters whose deaths would hurt, make sense, and satisfy long-running arcs. Let's start with Murray Bauman. Murray has become a major part of the adult team, especially with Joyce and Hopper, but his whole role is kind of designed for a big, explosive exit. He's a conspiracy guy, he's chaotic, he's funny, and he's the sort of character you can kill to give the story weight without ripping the entire show's emotional center apart. A lot of fans imagine him going out in some wild, over-the-top way, like trapping demodogs and demobats and blowing everything sky high. If the show needs a meaningful adult death that doesn't emotionally destroy the kids, Murray is a very likely candidate. Then there's Jonathan Byers. Multiple breakdowns of the trailer focus on that shot of Nancy covered in blood, shaking, and washing her hands. Many fans think that's Steve, but a lot of writers and critics have called Jonathan as the big death instead. Jonathan has been emotionally stuck for a while, unsure what he wants to do with his life. His strongest motivations are protecting Will and loving Nancy. Him finally stepping up and sacrificing himself, either for his brother, for Nancy, or for the larger group, would give his character a huge, tragic resolution. It would devastate Joyce, wreck Will, and also clear the path for Nancy and Steve if the Duffers decide their endgame. If you had to bet on a major human death, Jonathan is very high on the list. Steve Harrington is the one everyone is terrified about. He was supposed to die back in Season 1 as the awful 80s boyfriend, but Joe Keery was so good that they rewrote his entire arc. Now he's the protective babysitter, the big brother to Dustin, and half of one of the best friendships on TV with Robin. He's been beaten, bitten, nearly ripped apart, and he keeps throwing himself into danger anyway. And that's exactly why so many people think he's doomed. Ending Steve's story with one final, huge sacrifice would complete that redemption arc in the most painful way possible. Fans have even said, "I think Steve is going to die in the finale." It would end his arc perfectly, and it would be probably the saddest and biggest death of the entire show. The only thing that might save him is that his death has become almost too predicted. It's so expected now that some think the Duffers will avoid it just to keep us guessing. But he is absolutely top tier at risk. Now we have the 2 characters who are literally tied to Vecna and the Upside Down, Will Byers and Eleven. There's a very strong argument that Stranger Things is actually Will's story. The first episode is the vanishing of Will Byers. He was the first kid taken by the Upside Down, he was used as a spy, and the entire dimension seems to be frozen on the day he disappeared. Trailers for Season 5 show Will once again facing off with Vecna, and the villain's voice telling him, "You are going to help me one last time." That line has fueled a ton of theories that Will might have to sacrifice himself to finally sever Vecna's connection to our world. Ending the series with Will choosing to give up his life, after spending Season 1 with no choice at all, would bring things full circle in the darkest possible way. He started it, so he ends it. But at the same time, the Duffers have said they don't want the show to just be misery. People genuinely wonder if, after everything he's been through, possession, trauma, hiding his feelings, all of it, Will deserves, for once, to actually be happy. Some theories suggest a bittersweet middle ground instead of a straight-up death, and I'll get to that in a second. 11 is the other huge question mark. On one level, it makes total sense for her to die. Her confrontation with Henry Creel is what opened the original gate. She's been the one person with enough power to fight the Upside Down from the very beginning. A lot of fans think the only way to fully shut the door is for 11 to sacrifice herself in some giant final showdown. But if you bring in the extra mythology from the play The First Shadow, things get more complicated. That story suggests this isn't all 11's fault. The Mind Flayer's influence predates her, and Henry was already disturbed and corrupted. If the show weaves that in, it takes some of the guilt off 11's shoulders. There's a real possibility that she doesn't have to die to fix what happened, that she can find a way to make things right without paying with her life. After a childhood of abuse, lab torture, and constant battles, a lot of people feel like she deserves a real ending, not a martyrdom repeat of Season 1. And of course, there is one character whose death is basically guaranteed: Henry Creel, aka Vecna. He is the big bad. He's orchestrated everything from the shadows. He's responsible for decades of pain and death. There's no redemption path that realistically wipes that slate clean. Almost every theory agrees he has to be stopped permanently. The only debate is how it happens. Some people think 11 will obliterate him in a massive psychic explosion. Others think it might be a tag team moment, with Nancy landing the final physical blow since she was the first one to see his apocalyptic vision. And then there's the wild but surprisingly popular theory that instead of simply killing him, 11 might heal what's left of Henry the boy, cutting off Vecna's power at its source. The final episode is literally called The Right Side Up, which makes people wonder if this ends not with total destruction, but with the Upside Down being transformed instead of erased. So what's the final, most brutal, you won't recover from this prediction? A lot of endgame theories combine all of this into one devastating idea. The Upside Down doesn't disappear, it has to be contained, and someone has to stay behind as the Guardian. The most popular version goes like this. Will chooses to stay in the Upside Down willingly, finally taking control of the thing that's been haunting him since Season 1. 11 either joins him or uses her power to stabilize the connection so that he isn't completely alone. Hawkins is saved. Vecna is gone. The door is sealed. But Will and possibly 11 are on the other side. It's not a simple death, but it's still a loss. Mike has to accept that growing up means letting go of the people he loves most. Joyce and Hopper have to let Will grow up on his own terms. The rest of the party has to move on with their lives while knowing part of their family is forever in the dark. That kind of ending is exactly the bittersweet emotional pain the Duffers love. Hopeful, but heartbreaking. Either way, very few of us are getting through this final season dry-eyed. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments who your favorite Stranger Things character is, which season is your favorite, and who you think is actually going to die in Season 5. Do you think Will or 11 make it to the end, or are we saying goodbye? Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our breakdowns as the final episodes drop.